So I'm here to introduce our very kind and brilliant speaker, and I'm honoured to do that because I love him. I have admired him for ages. I almost fancy him. He's great. He's something of a hero to me. He's ballsy. He's eloquent. He's always got a natty waistcoat. And he is, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Bryant.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure that I like being called courageous. It always makes me feel as if I'm about to be in more trouble. Normally with my husband, but anyway, that's another story. As Julie Andrews so memorably sang, let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. Truth matters. As humanity stumbles around in the dark, it needs to know that there are such things as hard, immutable, verifiable, evidential truths. Facts that you can bump up against, established, certain, reliable facts, not alternative facts, facts. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, truth is a fact or principle that is thought to be true by most people. The Holocaust did happen. Children were gunned down at Sandy Hook. Climate change has been caused by humans. Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates did not create COVID so as to enrich themselves. Joe Biden won, Trump lost. Brexit has harmed our economy. Broadcasters sometimes claim they need to present both sides of the argument, but it's dishonest and untruthful to give a platform to climate, democracy, or Holocaust deniers. And I find it disturbing that GB News now bills itself as a necessary corrective to the supposedly liberal mainstream media, when it spends much of its time advertising, promoting, and amplifying really dangerous hard-right conspiracy theories, including about COVID. That's why I have a sneaking respect for Stanley Baldwin, who complained that the major newspapers in 1931 were engines of propaganda for the constantly changing policies, desires, personal vices, personal likes and dislikes of their owners. Nothing has changed. He was right. Client or proprietorial journalism that pretends to be faithful to the truth is a pernicious mockery of the real thing, and we have it live and clicking today. What, after all, are we to make of the Daily Mail's front pages this summer, which celebrated Liz Truss with "cometh the hour, cometh the woman," and 𝗃𝗧𝗏 budget, at last a true Tory budget? If backpedaling were an Olympic sport, the Mail would easily beat Chris Hoy to the podium. But the Daily Telegraph wasn't much better, as it claimed Liz Truss was the competent and proficient, candidate who was ready to assume the highest political office in the land. And then there's the Daily Express. No one at the top of her party has a better understanding of policy development. And while we're talking about client journalism, what about The Spectator? The prospect of Liz Truss becoming the UK's third female PM is antagonising all the right people, but Patrick O'Flynn. And the only bad part of her budget was the support for energy bills, wrote Kate Andrews. The internet has forced newspapers to turn to alternative online models for making money out of their content, as according to Ofcom, nearly half of all UK adults used social media as one of their main sources of news in 2020. 76% used Facebook for news, and 37% used Twitter, although more than half the content access originated from a traditional news organisation. The problem is, this has drawn traditional journalism into the world of algorithms and artificial intelligence and placed it alongside content-hungry apps like Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and TikTok. My argument is that this is a profoundly dangerous moment for British journalism. Algorithms can be useful. Artificial intelligence can be used to detect fraud in a bank account, for instance, translate a foreign news website, or ensure someone travelling overseas gets suitable health advice. It's probably also useful that an algorithm will work out whether I prefer rom-coms or Marvel movies and let me know about any upcoming films that might appeal to me or not, Hugh. But it spooks me, to be honest, that the Facebook algorithm seems to know I am gay. I am 60, hence the Saga holiday adverts. I prefer Sauvignon Blanc to Chardonnay. and I enjoy the theatre. And it disturbs me when I get adverts on Facebook for travel insurance just moments after I've booked a flight. Fictional 1984 had nothing on actual 2022. TikTok is the same. I only ever use the home function, but you'd be amazed what comes up. A great deal of musical theatre, men working out in gyms, men who seem to have lost their shirts, Dr. Pimple Popper, and endless Graham Norton and RuPaul Drag Race clips mixed in with stories about Ukraine. That isn't, I assure you honestly, because I've searched any of these things out. They find me, I don't find them. I hate to think what face recognition software can and probably is being used for in places of public assembly in China or in Russia. That is problematic enough, but my real beef is with the effect these algorithms have on journalism and political discourse, as they nudge people to political extremes, they promote division, and they pervert the truth by creating an incentive for untruth. Far from caring about the harmful effects of algorithms, the social media companies and their allies / competitors in the press rely on them, I think, to make money. The case of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle forcefully makes the point. The data analysts Bob Sentinel looked at 114,000 Twitter posts about the couple since January 2020 and found two things. Firstly, that 55 accounts had been set up solely to post negative material about them, and 28 more accounts had been set up to amplify those messages. And secondly, that the Twitter algorithm, which suggests people you might want to follow, urged someone who had viewed one hate account or message to follow several others. These 83 accounts were responsible for 70% of the negative content targeted on the couple. One account posted 111,031 messages about them. Bob Sentinel reckons there are 264 single-purpose hate accounts solely targeting Harry and Meghan. The same goes for UK newspapers that fill their online sites with hateful Meghan Markle material. It is becoming their richest clickbait scene, apart perhaps from the sidebar of shame on Mail Online. It drives viewing and earns advertising income, which is why so many British opinion writers pen so much drivel about the couple. Not because the story matters, it doesn't. Not because the writer genuinely cares about it, they don't. But because it makes money. That is not journalism. It's a perversion of journalism. And yet again, it means that the press see other people's lives as commodities to be traded. The promotion of conspiracy theories. Algorithms gather diasporas by recommending people with similar interests and outlooks to follow each other. Sometimes the original connection is very tenuous. They may read the same newspaper, or support the same party, or follow the same journalist. Or they may have just bought the same coffee machine. But they get brought together in the online world. They converge, and in their remotely gathered diaspora, to use a phrase of Coleridge's, they willingly suspend their disbelief when they hear or see people like them say things. People who might once have minutely questioned whether something was true, or at least been somewhere on the spectrum between sceptical and quizzical, now accept as gospel whatever they hear within the echo chamber, and they steadily find their biases confirmed and confirm the biases of others. Truth, in the sense of verified fact, becomes far less important than the group's own truth. This inclination towards untruth fans the flames of divisive politics. Look, for instance, and I think you will find this shocking, at a recent survey by the Policy Institute at King's College London. It found that 1 in 7 British people, 14%, say it's definitely or probably true that the Manchester Arena bombing involved crisis actors who pretended to be injured or killed, and that people weren't really injured or killed at all. Even more disturbingly, 1 in 4, 24% of people aged 18 to 34 say the 7/7 attacks in London were probably a hoax. And those who say their main source of news is social media apps are much more likely to think the Manchester Arena bombing was a hoax. 44% of those who rely on Telegram, and between 1/3 and 1/4 of those who rely on TikTok, podcasts, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook think it was definitely or probably a hoax. That is frightening. Concentration of ownership. It is already shameful that 90% of print media in the UK is in the hands of 3 companies. News UK, 32%, Daily Mail Group, 38%, and Reach, 19%. 2 companies, Bauer and Global, control nearly 70% of all local commercial radio stations and 60% of national commercial digital stations. It is bizarre that Sky and BBC contribute to this concentration by running lengthy segments commenting on the daily newspapers. I just don't understand why they do that anymore. When you add in the fact that 40% of people's time online is spent with sites owned by Google or Meta, you can see a real tightening of media concentration in this country and around the world. And with Murdoch, Rothermere and the Barclay brothers not resident in the UK for tax purposes, it is difficult to see how such monopolistic practices are in the interests of consumers, voters, or the general public in this country. So, in my last few moments, I'm calling for 6 things. First of all, higher journalistic standards across news sites and traditional press to counteract the inherent tendency in algorithms towards untruth and the marketing of hatred. Second, greater transparency about how recommended algorithms work and more online opportunities for consumers to opt for news and stories from outside their echo chamber. Thirdly, tighter rules on anonymised fake online accounts run by bots. Fourthly, more research by Ofcom and others into the pernicious or deleterious effects of algorithms. Fifthly, tighter regulation of broadcasters deliberately disseminating conspiracy theories and the online platforms that further amplify them. And finally, new media ownership rules that are fit for the digital era and enable regulators to decide whether a broadcaster or news service company is owned or run by a fit or proper person who is registered for tax purposes in the United Kingdom. Thank you very much.